back to the Short Ball podcast for a New South Wales Rugby League Junior Reps Grand Final preview this weekend at Leichhardt. Good slate of games. We got obviously the Howard Matthews, SG Ball, Lisa Fiola, and Tasha Gale finals all on. Kicking off with the Lisa Fiola at 10:30, and then games throughout the rest of the day. Howard Matthews at 12, Tasha Gale at 1:30, and the SG Ball finishes it off at 3:15. All at Leichhardt Oval. If you're looking to attend, $5 at the gate to get in, and then obviously you watch on Bar TV if you're looking to watch it from home. But we'll go straight into it. I won't waste any time here. Warriors and Knights is the first game that I'm going to be previewing. I'm going to go through the Howard Matthews and SG Ball. I'm going to do a quick preview of the two girls' games as well. Obviously, with the Howard Matthews and SG Ball, I've watched every single game throughout the entirety of the season, whereas with the girls' footy, I haven't watched as much as that, but I will be covering them as well. And then we'll just go towards the end a little bit of like 5 plays to watch and all that sort of stuff that I usually do. So we'll start off with the Warriors. They'd be the favourites heading into this game. I think I put a poll up the other day on my Instagram. Go follow it. About who like everybody thinks will win this game, and it ended up being like 80% had the Warriors, which I thought it would be a little bit closer than that, but Warriors have been a pretty dominant side this year. They've obviously only sort of lost the one game to the Roosters towards the back end of the season there, which, you know, they lost on the buzzer, but then they ended up pumping the Roosters the next week anyway in week 1 of finals, go up 20-4. So, yeah, they would definitely have to be the favourites coming into this game throughout the dominance that they've shown all year, but the Knights are on a 7-game winning streak coming into this. Which, you know, that counts for a lot, especially in these sorts of age groups where confidence is everything, and I think the Knights are a really confident side at the moment. The New Zealand Warriors, they finished 3rd on the season. They had the 6th highest points for with 186, and the 5th highest points against with 126, which those numbers don't really read all that well, and I think that's a big part of the reason why the Warriors weren't as heavily favoured coming into the finals as they are now, that they've sort of gone to another level by the general people following this grade anyway, because during the finals they beat the Roosters 20-4, and then last week beat the Rabbitohs 28-8, and both those were really convincing, really dominant performances, and I think that sort of swayed the opinion of the Warriors. But throughout the season, like, they weren't this super high-flying side. So for them, I think since they've gone to another level, I've had them as sort of my premiership favourite throughout the year, and I think that they've really shown that their forward pack is obviously going to be dominant, as it always is for the Warriors in these lower grades. They've got a really good forward pack this year in particular, with the likes of, you know, your Lucia McKaylee's, Crucial Katekas up front, Ronan Byford as well playing lock. I really rate him as a player. But we will go into sort of my key players for this Warriors side. We'll start off with their fullback, Jeremiah Lamana, obviously coming off a hat-trick in the preliminary final where he was unbelievable. He's been one of their key players this year. He obviously featured in last year's Howard Matthews success where they won the comp. He was in the centres that time around, but now he's moved to fullback, and he's really gone to another level this year, particularly in the final series. I always thought he was really good throughout the year. Out of yardage in particular, he had some really good moments, and his work rate's been good, and then he's just sort of, you know, barged his way over for a try or two throughout the year, but all round and in terms of those big performances, they haven't really come until later on in the year, which I think is a good sign that he's stepping up as the pressure increases. Like, he was the Warriors' probably best player from about round 6 onwards, in my opinion. And I think he's going to be absolutely devastating for them in the grand final. He's going to be key if they're going to go on to win it. And one of the forwards that I mentioned before, in Ronan Byford, he's going to be another one that I'll talk about in this sort of key plays segment. I think he's a guy that's a big game player. He was really good last week, scored a try that, you know, the Warriors were all over the Rabbitohs at this point. It was already 16-8. And you could argue that the game was done by then, but he's the one that he come up with a try that essentially sealed the deal. Like, that was game over from there. and just work rate through the middle, unbelievable. And during the regular season, when there were big moments required, he sort of stepped up with them. Against the Rabbitohs early in the year, or not the Rabbitohs, against, I'm trying to think of it, but he ended up having a match winner about round 3 or round 4, scored a miraculous try to end up winning them the game there. And then against the Steelers, I think it was just 2 weeks later, he scored a double against them, and at the time they were the undefeated team and the ones to beat. They didn't end up winning that game, but he had to put on an unbelievable performance in another huge game. He was the Warriors' best on ground by far, and I think he's one of those guys that's going to step up under the pressure of a grand final. And last year, if you remember, Lennox Tuiloma, the lock forward, was the man of the match in this grand final for the Warriors. So maybe a little bit of history repeats itself there for Ronan Byford. Bishop Neal, big boy out in the back row. Everybody's seen the highlight of his try against the Steelers where he put the chip and chase over the top and ran about 50 metres to score. He's just a genetic freak. Like, he's huge. They just can give him the ball close to the line and he's most likely going to score, just because he's able to power his way to the line just through sheer size. But he does have the skill to go with it. Got a mad offload on him, and if he clicks in this game, there's very few ways to contain him, if any at all. So, going to be a big job for the Knights to try and shut him down, because if he's on, and he's going to be very tough to stop. Lucian McKaylee, mentioned him before, big boy through the middle. I think he's been one of the Warriors' best this year, all around. Just, sheer size, he gets through enough work and is really crucial to the Warriors go forward. Him and Crucial Koteka, that front row pairing, very good at sort of laying a platform for the Warriors and getting them into good ball. So he'll be crucial again. And then the halfback, Alapati Tusasawagia, he's not coming up with the highlight plays or coming up with like the mad try assist or the mad numbers tries, whatever. He does have those plays in him, and he scored a try against the Roosters, and like he's had a couple of really nice moments this year. But it's mainly just his kicking game. Kicking game is super, and he's just decision making close to the line. Like, he's able to create overlaps for, like, if you look at Jeremiah Lamana's highlight reel, half of the time it's his halfback who's giving him the ball and creating that space for him, and I think he's going to be crucial, and he could be one that ends up taking out the player of the match in this one just because he's everywhere and organising this team perfectly. So he's going to be one for them. In terms of their keys to success, what they need to do to win this game, obviously control the middle. That's a given, but for them, it's super important that they establish dominance, because that's their point of difference is their middle forwards, and it's important that they sort of establish dominance in that area of the game, because I think Knights might have them outgunned in terms of attacking ability, and you'd see that through their points throughout the year. Knights obviously a really gun attacking side, and they've done that like against the Steelers, who had a really good forward pack. Knights just outgunned them. So yeah, the Warriors it's gonna be crucial for them to control the middle, and obviously I think they've got the personnel there to do so. They need to keep their foot on the throat through the middle stages as well. Once the bench players come on, they need to really lift, and they've got a good bench there. So they are missing Amarcio Tiatia, who I thought I thought he was on for a really good game last week before he ended up getting concussed against the Rabbitohs. I thought he's been a very reliable player off the bench for them this year. But there's no scrubs coming in to replace him, and like they've got unbelievable depth in that Harold Matthews side. And off the bench, I think one of their better players in terms of just raw ability. He's only 15 or 16 years old at the moment, but in terms of raw ability, Satali Asalele Fretton is a weapon. And off the bench, if he's another one like Bishop Neal, that if he switches on, he'll be impossible to contain for the Newcastle Knights. But yeah, it's just because the Knights bench is unbelievable this year. Like, they've come on and turned and flipped games on its head a lot of the time, especially last week against the Central Coast Roosters. Guys like Cody Baker, Kyron Croker had phenomenal games, and that's going to be crucial for the Warriors to contain them. And to just keep applying the pressure that they're going to be applying from the start with that starting forward pack that they have. And then the last key to success for the Warriors there for me is to just keep Newcastle in their own end. Newcastle have just got attacking dominance all over the park, and the one way to sort of stop them is to just win that yardage battle and muscle up in defense, get off your line, because if they give away cheap penalties or they let Newcastle get into their territory, there's going to be points scored, and the Warriors can't sort of afford to get into a arm wrestle not an arm wrestle, sorry. They can't afford to get into like a shoot off where they just go and try for try, because I don't think Warriors will be able to match them in that regard. Obviously, their attack sort of sixth in the comp, which is still good, but they haven't put teams to the sword. Like, you look at the way that they're winning games. Beat the Rabbitohs last week 28-8, just outmuscled them. Beat the Roosters 20-4, just outmuscled them, outworked them, kept them in their end. And it's that sort of style of footy that's going to win them games. Like, you could see that even from the start. Like, their first game against Manly, I think they won something along the lines of 28-10. That's just off the top of my head. And that was just because they just were too big and too powerful for Manly, kept them in their end, and that's what they're going to have to do to Newcastle here, because if Newcastle, there's probably an amount of points that they can get to, which guarantees them a win against Warriors this weekend, and if they're sort of scoring 24, 28 plus, Warriors aren't going to be able to go past them. So yeah, they need to just establish dominance there through the middle and keep Newcastle pinned and not allow them easy attacking opportunities. Now we look across at the Newcastle Knights. They've obviously been on an unbelievable run, 7 straight games. It's tough to get a read on this side, because for mine, I always sort of looked at them as a really good side. But then the way that they beat the Steelers, it was like, oh, okay, this is, like, they're not just a side that's on a run, they're a side that's a genuine premiership threat. Then against the Central Coast Roosters, it wasn't as impressive as a performance, but then their bench players come on, they just found a way to win, so that's also a positive that you take out of that, is the fact that, Central Coast, I thought, were the dominant side for most of that game, and Newcastle still found a way to get up over them, and their just ability to find points wherever. Like, Central Coast Roosters in that second half of that game were camped down Newcastle's end for most of the time. They had all the ball, and Newcastle got down to their end like 2 or 3 times and scored each time in that second half. And that's sort of the attacking ability that they've got, and that was the key to my last point about the Warriors, is keeping Newcastle in their own end, because if they give them too many attacking opportunities, they will score points. Like, they got a spine of Riley Roster and Cooper Vitano, Chase Butler, Zane Hopkins, who've all been phenomenal this year. Vitano and Butler in particular, unbelievable footballers. Riley Rostron, one of those guys I can see really breaking this game open. He's gone to another level over the back half of the year. As I've said a couple of times over on Instagram, he's just improving week to week, and he's saving his best performances for last, and I think he could be a really crucial player to the Knights this weekend. But I'll go through sort of their key players. Chase Butler first up, like his kicking game, defensively as well. I think he's super impressive as a player, but it's his kicking game that's the main point of difference. And he's obviously got some attacking flair about him as well, and he's sort of the indication of, he's sort of the embodiment rather of how the Newcastle Knights play their footy is, play what you see in front of you. And that Sharks game, he scored a try that he kicked across field and then just put himself in the right position to then score a try in the corner. And then with the game in the balance, scores were level, or they were down 20-18 rather. Puts a chip and chase in for himself, just creates something, pass inside to Kyron Croker, and he scores. And that's the sort of footy that they play, and that's the sort of footy that he plays. Sees what's in front of him, but he does the simple things right, and he's been one of the best players in the competition this year, easily. Cooper Vitano, his half partner, sort of the more like Chase Butler still plays to a little bit of structure, kicks well, defends well, chases hard, all that sort of stuff. Cooper Vitano's more the flashy, like silky ball player of the two. A lot of the try assists and line breaks and all that sort of stuff go to him. And he's got a solid short kicking game. So he's going to be one that will probably have a big impact on the score sheet this weekend and on the stat sheet, especially playing off the back of Chase Butler. Their combination's been unreal. Riley Rostron, mentioned him before. I won't go too much more into him because I sort of wasted a bit of what I was about to say, but he's a very good ball runner, quick, lightning in support, close to the line because he plays a bit of dummy half as well. Close to the line, he's a threat. So they just got to keep their eyes on him. He could be one that scores a couple of tries and takes out a player of the match because he's just improved that much over the last sort of 2 months. So going to be a good watch. Curtis Mulheron, the other one. He's got a gun combination with Cooper Vitano on that right edge. Runs a tidy line. He's very mobile for a big-bodied back rower. And he's going to be one that is going to be super tough to contain, especially, like, this is what I mean, when they get close, when they get into attacking opportunity, they've just got strike all over the park, and Curtis Mulheron's no different to that. And he gets through a heap of work too. Like, you'll see him up towards the top of the tackle count a lot of weeks, as well as his lock forward, Cooper Townsend, who's always sort of towards the top of the tackle count. Last week, they used Cooper Townsend at 9 a little bit, and I thought that was strange, because at 13, he's been an unbelievable player this year, gets through a heap of work, and their go forward isn't the same without him there sort of taking that run and getting a fast play the ball. He's very good at that sort of stuff, punching the line back and allowing his boys to get momentum off the back of that. So hopefully they keep him at lock this weekend, and I think he'll have a big impact on the game as well. And the other one I was going to mention as well, Ashton Allen, through the middle. He's been their best front rower this year, I think. He's just, close to the line, a threat, as with most of the big-bodied front rowers in this grade. But he bends the line back with most of his runs. So going to be a good watch there. It's a very good matchup between these two sides. I think it's the best matchup of the weekend. I was saying that the other day. Just because it's such an unpredictable matchup, but it's so tight on paper because both sides have guns all over the park, and they've got their own distinct styles of playing footy, which is like, okay, which style is going to come out on top this weekend? It's going to be a super good watch. Their keys to the success, the Newcastle Knights, my first one that I've written here, back their ability. They're a very free-flowing side that can score points at will, and they just need to back that, play what they see in front of them. If, Chase Butler or Cooper Vitano or Riley Rostron see something, they just need to get the ball and back themselves, and that will create points off the back of it. Their bench impact, I sort of half spoke about these guys before. Cody Baker, Sione Hokanima brings size off the bench. Noah McNamara has been very good as well. He started in a couple of games and come off the bench a lot, and ball playing through the middle is actually not too bad. He links up with his forwards pretty nicely and gets through work. And then Kyron Croker as well off the bench, been super. And then my last one, number up in defence. Obviously, when you're coming up against a pack as big as the New Zealand Warriors, you just need to get bodies in front, especially with Lucian McKaylee and Bishop Neal and those sorts of guys. You just cannot let them crash over from close range, and they need to just number up, get bodies and tackles, and work for each other in order to come out on top in this one. We'll go over to the SG ball game now, and I'll start with the Roosters preview. The Roosters, they were 7th at a certain point in this competition. They sort of looked in danger of falling out of the 8 if they lost 1 or 2 more games, but they were too good on paper to do that. Then they had, obviously, the returns of Toby Rodwell, who's just added another dimension to this side. They're a very good footy team. On paper, I think they've been one of the best teams. I think they're probably the best team in the comp on paper. Their forward pack is insane. Obviously, you got Peter Benjamin Uni, who last year played for them in the front row when they they finished first undefeated but ended up falling out in the finals to the Bulldogs. Then Kane McGelly, who they brought down from Ipswich. He was unreal for Ipswich last year, and he's been even better this year for the Roosters. Darcy Smith, James Finnegan in the back row, two tough line running back rowers. Darcy Smith, I think he runs the best line in the competition, and I think he's probably been on form. I think he's nearly the best back rower in the comp at the moment. He's been unbelievable this year. James Finnegan as well, very good player. Played Harold Matthews last year in that side that went well, but fell out in finals week 1. And then Josiah Fesselai, who's another just freakish footballer, good ball runner, and good workhorse as well through the middle. And off the bench, Eddie Kalis, Kainan Tove, Etula Seve, who's been spoken about a lot. He's earned a top 30 contract at the Roosters already. And Philip Lavakiaho, who was also a part of that Harold Matthews time last year. Big boy off the bench. Like, they've got so much size in this side that it's going to be super tough. It's going to be the main goal of the Parramatta Eels this weekend is to slow down that middle, because last game the Roosters just rolled them. It was 32-12, week 1 of the finals. These two teams matched up, so they match up again, and I think the Eels will be better than that. They have to be better than that, and they just did not rock up that, and that might be a wake-up call to them because they were undefeated minor premiers this year. They've just been borderline unstoppable, and they rocked up expecting to just win, and I think they got slapped in the face, and now it's about how they bounce back and if they're able to control this forward pack of the Roosters. Key players for the Roosters. Toby Rodwell, obviously. I think if you follow these lower grades, or you don't even have to follow these lower grades, you just have to be a fan of the NRL, and you've probably heard of this kid. I think he's probably the front runner for that Blues 7 jersey at the moment. In my opinion, just the form that he's been in is unbelievable. And if he does lead this side to an SG Ball premiership, even man of the match performance, I think he has to get that jersey. Louis Lee in the centres, he's an unbelievable footballer. He's just size. He's just got size, mobility. He's a tough matchup for any opposing centre. His first game when he came back in against the Dragons, he was unreal. He's just a monster. He's going to be very tough to stop. Darcy Smith, spoke about him before. He's probably the form second row in the comp, in my opinion. He runs a tidy line. He's strong and just tough as nails. He's going to be very tough to contain for whoever is matching up on him, which I believe is Lincoln Fletcher on that right side. So he's going to have to be switched on in defence, because Toby Rodwell and Darcy Smith, they've combined plenty of times this year. And even Tyson Walker floating around to the left edge, they've all combined plenty of times with Darcy Smith to put him through holes. And he's going to be a huge job for Lincoln Fletcher. On him, Kane McGelly, spoke about him before, come down from Ipswich, just very good through the middle. He can break open a defensive line, just taking one off the ruck carries and stuff like that. And when he gets ball off of others, when Josiah Fesselai might tip onto him, or when one of the halves tips onto him and he has a little bit of space, he's impossible to stop. And then Etula Seve off the bench, top 30 contracted already to the Roosters. Well, not this year, but for the years coming up. I think 27 might be the first year it's activated. Just a huge body. He's played a little bit of flag this year and killed it up there. Scored a try against the Panthers, which was freakish for his size. I think he's about 120 kilos. Very tall, and he burst through a gap, step to the fullback and stuff like that. So he's just a natural talent, very good player, and he's going to be on this weekend. Huge impact off the bench from him. Keys to success for them. Right edge. Their right edge must defend well. That's Tyson Walker, Brooklyn Heath, EJ Mahu, Delamere. Not because they've had particular defensive dramas this year. And obviously James Finnegan's included in that right edge as well. But not that they've particularly had huge defensive issues. They've conceded a couple tries down that edge, but it's the left side attacking edge running at them. What team doesn't concede tries to that? It's more so the Parramatta Eels left edge attack. Unbelievable. Lorenzo getting a ball out the back to Cameron Bamblett, and then out to Aidan Kaborian has just proved so fruitful for Parramatta this year. Kaborian's played, I think, 4 or 5 games and has scored a try in every single one of those games. I think he's about up to 6th or 7th for the year. and just off the back of those shifting movements where it always seems like Cameron Bamblett's just got an overlap after the ball's gone through Lincoln Fletcher, Lorenzo Talatena, and then it just gets to Bamblett and he's just got a 3-on-2 or a 2-on-1, and that's where the right edge for Roosters needs to be switched on, because that's just so much good attacking ball goes down that edge for the Parramatta Eels. And obviously they've got Don Ferrugia on the right edge, who scored 12 tries off the back of similar movements. Cameron Bamblett at the end of those as well. But I'll put more of a focus on that right edge defending brilliantly, because they have to, because that seems to be a more potent attacking edge for the Parramatta Eels. Their forwards must dominate during the Eels lull period. Now, for the people who have watched the Eels most of the year, or even like myself have watched every single game of them, you know that at some point during a game they're going to have 10 to 15 minutes off. And I hope for the sake of a good contest that it doesn't happen this weekend, because if it does, the Roosters forwards will dominate that period. And I think with the likes of Atula Seve, Philip Levikiaho, Darcy Smith, Kana McGelly, like, these guys are too good to switch off against, and if they do that, Roosters are just going to pile on the points, as they're very capable of doing. They did it last time these two matched up, and the Eels do need to be switched on for the whole 70, but it's very rare that you get that from this side. So there will be sort of, I think, based on what history tells me, there will be a 10 to 15 minute period where they're a little bit weaker. Which even it happened against a couple of people messaged me and go, they've finally played a full 70 against the Rabbitohs. I still didn't think that they did. I just thought that the Rabbitohs, when the Eels sort of switched off and were making a little bit of errors, I thought the Rabbitohs didn't really capitalise on that. But yeah, and again, it's SG ball, it's under 19s. You're not going to get teams that are perfect, but it's more pronounced for the Eels, because that's where they concede a lot of points, is just during a down period where they just allow teams back into the game. It happened against the Storm, very, very poorly against the Storm, but the Storm just missed out on a few moments that could have flipped that game, and I thought Storm had every chance to win it. Goal kicking cost them, and then just they were all over Parramatta, put a kick dead, then conceded a penalty, and that was the end of it, at 20 points to 12. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting watch this weekend to see if Parramatta can go the full 70 and keep their foot on the throat. But it's going to be, if they do have that lull period, the Roosters need to capitalise on that. And then my last key to success for the Roosters, Toby Rodwell masterclass. Like, kicks well. If he kicks well and just plays to his standard, they probably go a long way to winning, especially off the back of that forward pack. I think he's a rare player in this competition where he can flip the momentum on his own. Obviously, that's mostly like for forwards in this grade, because forwards do have a lot of luck in just punching through the line and making a big carry, but he's a halfback who's, with his kicking game, he can just nail a 40-20 out of nowhere, or he can come up with a big play that flips momentum back to his team's side. And if he can just put on a huge game and win the game off his back, which is why he's probably one of the front runners, if not the number one pick for the Blues this year. Into the Parramatta side. Now, they were obviously undefeated minor premiers throughout the year. They then copped their first loss of the season against the Roosters in week 1 of finals. The first time the two played, it was a 22-all draw. But it's going to be a cracking matchup, and I think the Eels, they by rights, if they rock up, should be winning this game, because them at their best is, like, no team has showed signs of stopping the Eels when they're at their best, but it's just about showing that. On paper, I'd actually probably argue the Roosters are a stronger side on paper, but Parramatta's just put together more performances, and that 22-all draw against the Roosters, Lorenzo wasn't playing, and I know Toby Rodwell wasn't playing either, so that's what makes this matchup particularly interesting, because you've got both of those two guys who have been two of the form halves in the competition, going up against each other. The last time the two played, obviously Roosters got up, but I think the forward pack for the Eels didn't show up, and well, the Eels generally didn't show up, and Lorenzo had a pretty poor game himself, to be fair. But I think this game is going to be the true making of those two boys, and I think I said this on my Instagram earlier, but if Toby Rodwell comes out and has a man of the match performance, and or rather Lorenzo Talatana comes out and has a man of the match performance, that guy just has to be picked in Origin, and then you pick a half the suit. And honestly, I wouldn't be against just the two of them being the Origin halves. The way that they're going, and if you're going to pick on form, that's probably what I'd do. Obviously, Mitch Woods and Zane Harrison are two absolute gun players, been unreal this year, and I'm keen to actually see how Zane Harrison goes when I tap into the Malmaniga Cup finals series. Their semi-finals are this weekend as well, and then they've obviously got grand finals coming up. So that's going to be a good watch for the New South Wales side, but these two guys are in just such good form that if one of them stands up in this big game, you have to pick him. Key players, Lorenzo, I've spoken a lot about him. I don't need to say too much more other than just sort of how he plays, and he's a gun ball runner. You're going to have to watch that if you're the Roosters. Don't fall off him, help in the tackle, because he's just so strong when he carries the ball, and his ball playing has improved drastically this year, and that's a big part of the reason why he's had such a dominant year, and his combination with Cameron Bamplett and Lincoln Fletcher are going to be crucial in this game. Lachlan Kanakis, another one. Defensively, always been great. Running the ball, always been great. Added kicking game and brilliant decision making in the red zone this year. Close to the line, he's put his forwards over multiple times recently, and he's an Australian schoolboy. He was already a top tier player, and he's just added more strides to his game this year. And his kicking game has been super impressive this year. So top player there, Lincoln Fletcher, another Australian schoolboy. Good kicking game on him. He's a very silky player. He's a bit more of he's not a traditional halfback. He does like to do some flashy things, throws the cutout ball. Short kicking game's brilliant. He plays what's in front of him, but I think that works in this side. And he can play that structured brand of football as well, but very sort of more to the side of a flashy player, in maybe like the more modern Sam Walker style of halves. He's a bit of a bigger body though, and runs the ball a little bit better than that. But he's going to be entertaining to watch. Max Popo, one that I think is knocking down the door of an Origin call up, in my opinion. If you've been watching all of Parramatta games, you know how important this guy is. You know how he's probably been Parramatta's most consistent player, probably other than Lorenzo maybe. But even then, like you'd say, Max's ceiling and his floor aren't too far off each other, because he's just been super reliable in that middle, provides an 8 out of 10 game nearly every week, and has those big games in him. Against the Rabbitohs, it was between him and Lorenzo for my man of the match in that game against the Rabbitohs, and I very nearly gave it to Max. He ended up with like 192 run meters and 27 tackles in just like 55 minutes of football. So very good player there. And I've gone for a little bit of a different one for my last guy, and that's Tom Summer off the interchange bench. All year I've just loved the way he runs the ball. He's very intense. He's got a bit of back fence brown about him. He just comes off the bench and goes hard. And during that period where the bench for the Roosters comes on, he needs to come on and set the tone and establish a win in that battle, because the way he plays, he's sort of got to be the guy that I think needs to step up and take it to these Roosters forwards, and I think he will. So another key player for them in this result there. Keys to success for the Eels, is don't take the foot off the gas at any stage. I've sort of went on a tangent before about their lull periods. Just needs to not happen. Control the Roosters' middle, again, sort of self-explanatory. Just don't allow these forwards to just run over the top of you. Certainly not least provide some different looks than attack, because I think if you do your homework on the Eels side, you'd find out sort of how they attack pretty quickly. They shift to the left and they go just through the hands and then run a couple of block shapes, and Lorenzo goes out the back to Cameron Bamblett, and it's all very similar in the way they do things. I get the ball into Lincoln Fletcher's hands a little bit more, allow him to just do some shit. Maybe Kanakis throw a couple of different looks at him. Lorenzo run the ball. They're going to get numbers to him, and they're going to look to shut Lorenzo down, and that's where their support in Lincoln and Kanakis and that sort of things is going to be crucial. They need their back rowers, Christopher Petrus and Josiah Funiuta, have been really good this year. They're going to be using them, but a lot of the time, it's not all the time. Like, they're obviously a gun side. I'm nitpicking here. Because you've got to nitpick with the side that's been so dominant this year, but just provide a few different looks than just sort of the simple play, which is working a lot and it's getting them a lot of points. Fletcher to Talatena, and then Talatena out the back to Bamblett, and then Bamblett gets a 3-on-2 or a 2-on-1, and that's going to work. But I'd be looking to disrupt the Roosters' defensive line a little bit and give him, especially early in the game, give him a few different looks. But that's very, very nitpicky. So we'll move on from there into a quick preview of the Lisa Fiola and Tasha Gale games. For the Lisa Fiola, it's the Central Coast Roosters who finished second, very dominant all year, against the Parramatta Eels who finished third. The Eels come off from knocking off the Bulldogs, who finished first in the competition last week. And the Roosters beat the Tigers in a thrilling game where Talia Tonga ended up having the game-winning play there. Going to be a top-class game, this one. It's two sides that have been sort of equally as good throughout the year. Central Coast beat the Eels 24-14 in the final, earlier in this final series. Just got the jump on them, got out to a big lead, and then didn't allow the Eels back into it. So it's going to be, the Eels are going to need to step up, but they can do that. They've beaten the Bulldogs twice this year, and the Bulldogs were probably the top side in this competition. So this is going to be, a hell of a matchup. Just a couple of players to look out for in this game. Bailey Marchong, Freedom Crichton Rapati for the Eels. I think they've been super impressive for mine. Bailey Marchong, sort of that crafty player out of dummy half, runs the ball really well, and then Freedom Crichton Rapati gets through plenty of work out of yardage and just has a game-breaking play in her. And then for the Central Coast Roosters, the two halves are impossible to look past. Talia Tonga, just a natural footballer, very good player, and then Mia Vautua, who's been probably the form player in Lisa Fiola this year. Like I said, I haven't watched every single game of that like I have with the boys, but from what I've paid attention to and all the games that I've watched, she's been unbelievable this year and was very good last year for Central Coast as well, and was one of their best players easily in that finals game, which they got knocked out from. But this year they're going to be looking to go all the way, and I think she's going to be a key player in all of that. And then over to the Tasha Gale, Eels 5th v Roosters 7th. So two teams that have come from outside of the top four, had very good upset wins last week. Eels beat the Bulldogs again, and the Roosters, they got up in a very good game last week against, I'm mind blanking on who it was. But yeah, they got up in an absolute thriller. They got up in a thriller against the Tigers 2 weeks ago. And then they beat the Steelers, They beat them 30-14. Yeah, I was thinking of the Tigers game and trying to remember who they versed in the prelim. But yeah, they versed the Steelers 30-14. Very good games from them. Coming into this game, I honestly don't know who to tip. I tipped the Roosters a little bit earlier on Instagram, but I've got no confidence, and maybe part of that comes from the fact that I've really only watched the finals series, and I've watched a couple of Eels games throughout the year. I probably watched one or two Roosters games, and I know a couple of their players as well from previous years, like, your Marley Cashins, your Tyraka Parties, Ellie Brander, those sorts of girls have been very good this year, and I've sort of watched a lot of them previously. I think, like I said before, the Roosters forward pack are very tough to go past. Aaliyah Nasio is coming off the bench. She's an NRLW experienced player. So I probably would tip the Roosters there, just because their forward pack I think is going to be very strong. And then you got the likes of Georgie Barrett at 6, Tyreka Party, Logan Fletcher. They can all create attack. I think those girls will be very tough to beat. Even though they did finish 7th throughout the year, but, it doesn't really matter where you finish. It's about, in the regular season, it doesn't matter where you ended up in the regular season. It's all about the finals, isn't it? So, Roosters, for mine, just based on their forward pack and just the size there. And that will be it for sort of my preview. I'm going to do a couple of bits of content as well, around 5 plays to watch for both the boys and the girls, and then some key play matchups for the both of them. So I'll end that to the back end of this podcast, and post the clips up on my Instagram and that. So make sure you go follow Instagram and TikTok at the Short Ball. We'll good luck to all sort of family, friends, all the players for this weekend. It's an exciting weekend for full games of Grand Final Rugby League at Leichhardt, and I'll wrap up a review sometime next week. 5 plays to watch in this weekend's SG Ball and Howard Matthews Grand Finals. We'll start off with the Roosters and Eels games, and I'll go straight to the Roosters with Louis Lee. Very big, mobile. Seno is just going to be an absolute handful for his matchup. For the Eels, Lincoln Fletcher. Very crafty halfback, has a good kicking game, good short and long kicking game. Very silky, just going to be a handful, and can come up with a little bit of attacking brilliance. For the Eels as well, Max Popo, the lock, just a gun, just workhorse. Bends the line back when he runs, good in defence. Just been one of their most consistent and reliable players this year. For the Howard Matthews games, Knights v Warriors. For the Knights, Chase Butler, been one of the premier players in the competition this year. Very good kicking game, defends very well. And then for the Warriors, Ronan Byford, I think he's got big game qualities written all over him. He's had some very clutch moments this year, and he's just a workhorse through that middle. I think he's a very gun and reliable player for this Warriors side. Players to watch for the Lisa Fiola and Tasha Gower Grand Finals this weekend. We'll start off with the Lisa Fiola, Central Coast Roosters versus Parramatta Eels. For Central Coast, I got 2 girls there to watch, because obviously they've been such a dominant side this season, finishing second, having one of the best attacks in the comp. And I think we'll start off with a halfback, Talia Tonga. Obviously came up with that awesome moment last week against the Tigers. Very good ball runner, slick ball playing, just an absolute handful for opposition. And then Anastasia Leotupu, a gun ball runner, playing in that lock position, can play a little bit in the centres at 6. Last year was very good for the Eels and very good at schoolgirl level. And then for the Eels, I think the one to watch there is Bailey Ma Chong, the dummy half, very crafty ball player and a good ball runner there. Now for the Tasha Gale, Eels v Roosters again. It's Eels v Roosters 3 times this weekend at Leichhardt. But for the Eels, we'll start off with Riverlee Arlo. Very good ball runner, just destructive at her best, and been one of their best players this year, if not the best, and one of the better players in the Tasha Gale competition, especially this final series, with her amazing ball running and then a good offload as well, which has resulted in a couple of tries for Parramatta. And then for the Roosters, gun ball running and gun ball playing half, Georgie Barrett. She had an absolute blinder a couple of weeks ago against the Tigers. She's been unreal this year, and just another key player to watch for that Roosters side. I think she'll be critical if they want to get the job done this weekend. Now we're going to go through some key player matchups for this weekend's New South Wales Rugby League Junior Reps Finals. The first one, Eels v Roosters in the SG Ball. Get used to hearing Eels v Roosters over and over again. Lorenzo Talatena versus Toby Rodwell. I think this one's pretty self-explanatory. 2 of the form halves in the competition. Lorenzo, just a gun ball running half who's got that ball playing aspect to him as well. Defends super. And then Toby Rodwell, a gun-kicking game, more of that managerial half, but he's got a good running game as well. I think he's scored a handful of tries this year, been very good throughout the back half of this season. And then in the Howard Matthews for the Knights, Riley Rostron versus Jeremiah Lamana, two guys that I think are more than capable of breaking this game wide open. Jeremiah Lamana did it last week for the Warriors, scored a hat-trick in their preliminary final win over the Rabbitohs, and Riley Rostron, he's just been building all year, and I think he's going to peak this weekend in the grand final. For the girls, Lisa Fiola, I think the number one matchup for me is between the two number sixes, Mia Vautua and Sharon Latapu, two very good ball runners. Mia Vautua has been one of the best players in the competition this year, if not the best. So obviously a high quality player there. And then Sharon Latapu as well for the Parramatta Eels, just been super. The last 2 years, in fact, has been a good player for them. I've gone with 3 spine members so far with halves and fullbacks and whatnot, but for the Tasha Gal matchup, I'm going to stick with 2 front rowers. Ellie Brander, obviously a very good footballer there, gets through plenty of work, bends the line back, and Tess McWilliams in the front row. I think she's been one of Parramatta's best this final series, had an unbelievable campaign so far, and just going to be an absolute handful. Got a good work rate, so going to be a play to watch there as well.